Hello everyone and welcome to The No Show. I'll be your host Nathan Orenstein, and today I'm going to be reviewing Creed 3. Creed 3 is written by Keenan Coogler, Zach Baylin, and Ryan Coogler, directed by Michael B. Jordan, and stars Michael B. Jordan, Tessa Thompson, Jonathan Majors, and Wood Harris. It takes place 3 years after Adonis Creed retires from boxing when an old friend from his past is released from a 20-year stay in prison. A former amateur boxer himself, Damian Anderson wants a chance at the heavyweight title, and Adonis must decide on how to handle this situation while also reliving his troubled and traumatic past. When the first Creed movie first came out to kick off the Rocky spin-off series, it felt a bit cash grabby, sure, but it ultimately succeeded in passing the torch to Adonis Creed, feeling more like a character study than a traditional boxing film. It is without a doubt one of the best sports movies of the past decade. Creed 2 felt a bit more by the books and stuck too closely to the Rocky formula, but it's still a solid entry in my opinion. With Creed 3 though, we really get a departure from that Rocky formula, and this is the first movie that doesn't feature Sylvester Stallone's Rocky Balboa at all. But the distinction goes beyond that in my opinion, and this is the first Creed movie that feels like it has its own entirely original identity. Creed 3 features, for the most part, a very self-contained story. Like I said, Rocky isn't here, and he really isn't mentioned much at all. Adonis's father, Apollo, isn't really mentioned either, and neither are any of the other characters from the other movies. You could really watch and fully appreciate Creed 3 without having seen any of the other Rocky or Creed movies. But the true source of Creed 3's original identity is some incredibly bold and downright impressive direction from Michael B. Jordan, who happens to be making his directorial debut. The best way I could describe his direction is that he amplifies everything. And for a boxing movie that explores the pent-up emotions experienced between two former friends and now rival boxers, I think it pays off. The fights in particular are incredible, really taking a much more stylized approach instead of a more traditional one. The intensity is turned up to 11, and every fight honestly feels like a battle for survival. This directing style also shows up in normal conversations, especially between Creed and Damian, and these two have a new added intensity that makes the relationships between characters more interesting. This approach doesn't always work though, and I do feel like Creed 3 lacks a certain emotional subtlety that could have really taken the story up a notch. And I do think that in one fight in particular, some of the stylistic choices were maybe a bit too much. But overall, I really enjoyed Michael B. Jordan's new direction for the Creed franchise. I don't know how well this directing style will translate outside of a Creed movie, but I do think it worked exceptionally well here, really making for an extremely entertaining film. In terms of the narrative, I think this is a bit more of a mixed bag, but still mostly positive. The central conflict is Creed versus Damian, like I described in the intro, and I really loved every aspect of this particular story. It's multifaceted and incredibly interesting, and it unravels in a way that makes you think back on earlier events with a different perspective. It helps that Jonathan Majors is also an absolute scene stealer as Damian Anderson. He is a terrifying antagonist to Michael B. Jordan's Adonis Creed, but in ways that are entirely human and justified by his backstory. He brings out the worst in Creed, dragging their relationship into dangerous and violent places. And Majors just adds to all of this by being both a physically and emotionally imposing force in every scene. He is a man with absolutely nothing to lose, and Majors captures this dangerous energy with a truly frightening intensity. Put simply, it is the best performance I've seen so far in 2023. Unfortunately, everything outside of the Creed versus Damian narrative just doesn't stack up at all. It mostly regards Creed's family life with his daughter, his wife Bianca, and his ailing mother. This is where emotional subtlety would have helped, but we just don't really get that. Nor do we get the proper time spent with this subplot to really feel fully invested in it either. Luckily, this isn't the true focus of Creed 3, but it would have been nice if it could have had a bit more attention paid to it in the writer's room. For the most part, I think Creed 3 is an overwhelming success. Michael B. Jordan's fresh direction really adds a unique style to the movie, and the addition of Jonathan Majors to the cast really just brings a new intensity to things too. I think the fight scenes are incredible, and the central conflict here is just as interesting too. I think some more nuance in Jordan's direction and the overall screenplay could have added some emotional depth to Creed 3, but what we get is still pretty compelling regardless. I don't think it quite hits the highs of the first Creed movie, but for my money, Creed 3 is the most purely entertaining film of the trio and is 100% worth watching. I'm going to be giving Creed 3 an 8 out of 10. If you enjoyed the review, then feel free to like and subscribe if you're new. And if you've seen Creed 3 already, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. I've been Nathan Orenstein with The No Show. Thanks for watching.